Hello viewers, I'm SB and welcome back to What's SB Playin' for another episode of Demon Crawl here. Today we are going to demonstrate mastery. Well, I mean, whenever we play a game, obviously, we're trying to demonstrate mastery. What I mean is, today we're going to be playing with the mastery system. When I did yesterday's episode, I had no mastery equipped, because I didn't want to complicate things any more than I absolutely had to while we were explaining the game. What masteries are, they're little like perks. You have to do a thing in-game to unlock them, and then once you unlock them, well, you don't actually unlock it. You unlock the ability to buy it in the in-game store. But once you do that and then go purchase it for tokens in the in-game store, you can equip one mastery per run, and they give you little bonuses, like Wizard makes it so you can acquire a magic item early on, which can be very powerful depending on which item you get. Knight gives you a little bit of defense at the beginning of the game, and then builds up more defense over time, which is like an extremely powerful effect. If you can get a little bit of extra health somewhere, you can make yourself resilient to a very large number of unfortunate guesses, or, in my case, silly mistakes where I would have known that cell was a monster if I would have just thought about it for another 10 seconds. And you can see they're multi-leveled. I only have Wizard 1 unlocked, but I've unlocked Knight 3. You have to spend more money, and I think you have to do more things in-game to unlock the ability to even upgrade them. But we're not going to be playing with Knight 3, as good as it is. We're going to be playing with my favorite mastery today, the Spy. So at the start of each stage, we glean 10 hidden cells. What glean means is it will reveal the number on the cell. It won't actually reveal the cell itself. It will still be closed, but it'll have the number on top of it, which allows us to deduce a lot of interesting information. And then whenever you chord a 4 or greater, glean all the nearby hidden cells. Chording is when we click on the cell to reveal all of the non-flagged squares around it. So, as you can tell, this is going to give us a lot of information. It's not going to make us any more resilient to the penalty for failed guesses, but it is going to mean we don't have to guess nearly as often. All of my favorite things in the game are about solving the puzzle better and not having to guess as often. Although, there's something to be said for razor blades, too, which I guess is... those are slightly different. Anyway, let's get in here. Let's give it a shot. So we have 32 monsters. Oh, and I should probably say, somebody in the comments of the last episode told me that they think it's a bad idea to start in the corner, that I should start in the middle of the puzzle. Because the cell that you click on to start is always completely empty. Which means that at the very least, you get to see all of the adjacent cells. It is possible to click in the corner and only get to see 4 cells, these 3 having numbers in them. If you click in the middle of the puzzle, you will always get to see 9 total cells, right? You always get a 3x3 area, so you get more information, in theory. I like to work from the corner because with the cells you're working with up against a wall, you can eliminate some of the possibilities. Like if you get a 2... if you click the corner and get a 2 in this space, you know exactly which 2 cells have the monsters in them. When you click in the middle, sometimes you reveal a 3x3 area, and the numbers are such that you cannot definitively say that any particular cell is or is not a monster. I've had that happen a couple of times. I don't actually know for sure that starting in the corner is better. I haven't read up on any Minesweeper strategy. I haven't done the math. This feels better to me, but I totally might be wrong. This totally might not be the best way to go. Anyway, we've already gone. So you can see now that we've started, 10 of the cells at random got gleaned. We got lucky and we got a couple of zeros here, so let's just reveal everything around those zeros. That's a pretty good start. What is in our chest? We found... triples your chance to find legendary and divine items. That seems like a pretty good thing to find at the very, very beginning of the game. Also, we found a man here, a scribe. For 33 coins, I will copy your first 3 items into your heirloom slots. It's a crafted item that can be added to your inventory at any point during a quest. So these are the heirloom slots down here. I don't exactly know how this whole system works. If I'm, there's a lot of mechanics in this game. 33 coins, I mean, that's not a... we don't have to think about that. There is 0 chance that we will have 33 coins before the end of the stage. Let's just move on and continue to play Minesweeper. So we know these are all monsters. We know these are all monsters. The one tells us one of those can be, or one of those must be, so that one cannot be. Okay, it's a decent amount of money for stage 1. Even if we don't find any more cash at this point, we're in pretty good shape. We know this is a monster. By the way, I just want to say thank you very much to all the people all the people who posted positive feedback about this. I was very gratified to see that the response to it was mostly very positive. This gleam is wonderful, so that one is already solved. I always get a little bit nervous posting puzzle game content to the channel, and you probably know that already if you've ever listened to me talk about it, including during last episode. And I've been trying to figure out where that comes from. Like, how am I so certain that nobody wants to see puzzle game stuff on the internet? Every time I encounter a YouTube personality that I like or that I follow playing a puzzle game, I'm like overjoyed about that. I love those videos. And the more I think about it, the more I think it pretty much comes down to, very early in the channel's life, I posted like the second or third puzzle game ever, puzzle video that I ever posted. I got this really horrible comment. I mean, just like, I'm not going to mince words. This is like a very shitty, mean comment about how I was wasting everybody's time and why do I even post stuff like this? Nobody wants to see a puzzle game. And I think maybe I just like let that seep into my brain a little bit too much. So I'm gonna try to get over that. I play a lot of puzzle games, y'all, and I'm gonna try to remind myself that people want to know about games that are good in general, you know. So we made 14 coins. I don't think we want to go shopping with 14 coins. Let's push on a little bit further. Now there is definitely a school of thought here that maybe it would be wise to buy just any item at all, something to help us push through these early levels to make it less likely that we will fail early on. But if we fail early on, we'll just start a new game. I don't think that that's necessarily a big deal. You know what, maybe just to like sort of feel it out. This would certainly not be a scientific way to approach the problem, but maybe just to feel it out, I should try clicking in the middle a little bit more on the first reveal this episode, just to kind of get a grasp of, oh dear, we found an omen already. The False Lamb. Stages have 2 cursed cells for each of your omens, and monsters are empowered by empty cursed cells. So that means that you can see the definition of empower scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. For each cursed cell that doesn't have a thing in it, if we get hit by a monster, it will deal 1 bonus damage. That could be very, very dangerous. Obviously, you can get around the effect of that by simply never getting hit by a monster. So that's what we'll do. Wow, this whole area over here is all... Yeah, that's not bad at all. Hopefully it is already like very obvious to you why I love the Spy, why I always want to play with the Spy Mastery. I think all of my victories, all of my wins have been with Spy equipped. It's so good to know things, to have information, and be able to fill in boxes without having to guess. All right, so let's see. And we're tearing through these early levels pretty quickly. Listen, I've played at this point kind of a lot of Demon Crawl. I ought to be good at it by now. So it looks like here we have 2 50-50s. There's not really a tremendous amount that we're going to be able to do about that, but we can push on a little bit here and hope that we will receive an item that might either, you know, make it a little bit easier to guess, or that might reduce the penalty for guessing wrong. So, okay, we know all of those are monsters to satisfy the 5. One of these 3, actually one of these 2 is a monster, right, to satisfy the 1. So we know that is not a monster. And then this 5 is solved already. And you see when we corded that 5, it filled in the numbers on all of the unrevealed cells, which is actually useful, because this 3 is already solved, so we can eliminate those right away. This 3 needs this to be that, and then we've solved this 2. Yeah, Spy... Did I? Yep, I totally did. I marked this as a monster because I was like, well, this 2 already has 1 monster near it. This is a thing I do all the time when I'm going too fast. If I'm like looking at this cell and I say, I'm going to try to use this number nearby to determine what the value of this cell is, monster or no monster, I often don't look past the nearby cell to things that are on the opposite side because I'm just braining too fast. And you might say, hey SB, it's a little presumptuous to call the thing that you are doing braining. And you're not wrong, but that's like a real mean way to express that. Come on, be nice to a stranger. Alright, 26 gold, I feel comfortable going into the shop with that. we are not going to be able to purchase the gospel. It turns out the gospel is only for the rich. Who would have thought? The compass will just solve a random cell for us. That's interesting. Mucilage. Hungry plants are more common. You may right-click a hungry plant to feed it the last item in your inventory. Actually pretty interesting, because this means that when we pick up omens, we'll be able to feed them to plants very, very easily. But unfortunately, this will go into our inventory after our current omen, so we can't, we can never use the mucilage to get rid of this thing. I might just pick up the compass. Honestly, solve a random cell is pretty okay. And it's a very, very low mana cost, so it's a thing we can do when we get stuck. I mean, like, if we were to use it right now, it's not super valuable, right? So I guess the low mana cost is offset by the fact that there aren't really that many situations where it's meaningful to do it. Okay, so we know all of these thanks to the value of a 1 next to a wall. I totally spaced on clicking in the middle of the puzzle, which is a thing I said I was going to do. We'll try to remember to do it on the next one. Okay. So, I mean, like, you can tell, I use that trick a lot, right? Where we have this situation. It's like, well, this one tells us that there's a monster here, which means this one tells us a lot of things about the surrounding cells. And that's a thing you can't usually do in the middle of the puzzle. But maybe it's a trick that I am overly reliant on. Explode the visible cell with the highest value and all the surrounding cells. I do so love to blow things up in a video game. It is one of my favorite pastimes. Also, you know, in real life, listen. I'm not telling you to go out into the world and blow things up. If you go out into the world and blow things up and you tell the police the man on YouTube said it would be neat, they're not going to be receptive to that excuse. But explosions are also pretty cool in real life. Anyway. One of these two is, so that one must be... only one of these two is a monster, so this one must be in order to satisfy that too. This is not... I'm in a little bit of trouble making anything conclusive out of this. Is there anything else we can do up here? Not really, unfortunately. Oh, I guess that glean is telling us some things. That's actually pretty useful, because that gives us this off of this 3, which then solves this 3 and this 2. We know that that is a monster. And since we know this is also a monster, this 2 gives us those cells for free. And then he just sat there and he commentated a whole game of Minesweeper. I know, it's crazy. Who would do such a thing? Why would you do that? Alright, we know this is not a monster. A lot of these cells would be super helpful to us if they would come up as 1s. And they're just not doing it. They're not playing along at all. So whenever you see a version of a man here, a little statue of a man, that is a spawner for that type of NPC. I don't exactly remember what priests do. And anyway, sealing inventory slots can be kind of a bummer, so you can see down there the definition of seal. It would just prevent us from clicking on the Lucky Bamboo. The Lucky Bamboo would totally still work, so there's not really a cost to it, except, of course, that then we couldn't seal that slot later for other things. I'm not going to worry about it. So one of these two is a monster, which means this cannot be a monster, which means this is, thanks to the 2. And that gives us some information. We do actually need to replenish our health. I gotta remember to actually click on the hearts. You know, usually at this point in the game, I haven't taken any damage yet, so I'm used to not... that's ugly right there. But our compass can solve that problem for us. So I suppose there's no reason not to. Now that we have a place where we'd love a solve to happen, there's no reason not to fire the compass, since we know we will get enough mana for it to be usable again later in the level. I did not even see what it solved. You know, there's a lot of level out here. It's tricky to keep an eye on the whole thing all at once. And they do not let you zoom out any further than we are currently zoomed out. Presumably for mechanical, like, balance type reasons. So let's see. For this 4, 2 of these 3, but only 1 of these 2 is monsters. So we know that's a monster, which means all of this stuff opens up. The glean here is also very helpful. Yeah, man, I just love more information. One of these two is a monster to satisfy that 4, which means this 1 is giving us a lot of information. I guess that 2 is solved already, too. That's a helpful thing to notice. If you are too unaware of a piece of information to use it, that's fun. You know, that's basically the same thing as you not having that piece of information. Try not to voluntarily not have information in life. Okay, so now when we use the compass, it will solve one of the only 2 unsolved cells, which obviously is very helpful to us. So that's usually how we're going to end up using the compass. It's going to be at the end of a level. We'll use it to solve a 50-50. But we can start just rolling it as soon as we see a 50-50 in the hopes that it will solve it for us. And since we have completed 3 levels, our mastery is now charged. You can see here, 3 of 3, glean all hidden cells near all gleaned hidden cells. Every 3 levels we'll be able to do that once. It's a very, very powerful ability. It gives you a huge amount of information. What do we have here? At the start of the stage, gain 3 omens. Whenever you open 20 cells without making a mistake, lose a random omen. Okay, so that could purge us of our false lamb. And monsters deal damage to your max life. Oh, okay. We extremely need to not get hit here. God, I hope that's how that works out. Alright, what did we get? Every 60 turns, you take a damage. Monsters always deal their max damage to your to your maximum life. This level is a death trap. And every 20 turns, convert all visible loot to omens. Okay. It's not so bad. We're going to try clicking not at the corner, but somewhat near the edge so that we can still build out toward the edge. Wow, that really worked out. That was very effective. That is not an artifact of having clicked in the middle. Sometimes you click in a corner and you get this much space, but I'm very happy that we got that much space. Do we want to hire the mercenary? So he'll just turn into a familiar and he'll like move in a random direction 1 space each turn. He might move up and reveal stuff for us, but my experience with familiars in large spaces like this is that they tend to just like wander in a square a lot. I'm not going to bother. We're saving that money for something useful. Okay, so we're just taking our turns, letting the omens get deleted here. All we have to do is not take any damage this level, and we will have dramatically improved our position. Well, maybe not dramatically, but we certainly will have gotten rid of that omen at least. Now, how does this work exactly? It's whenever you open 20 cells without making a mistake. It's not every 20 turns. If it was turns instead of just opening cells, then that would affect whether it was right for us to chord versus clicking each square individually. As it is, I think the right thing to do is just play in a normal way. Spend 5 coins to uncomplete the selected item shop. Okay, so if you end up with a ton of money, you could go back to a shop more than once. Although I don't know if doing that would cause the shop's inventory to replenish. It might not. I don't know. Alright, there goes our false lamb. The false lamb being removed from our inventory at this point really doesn't matter too much because he is far from our primary concern. Of the negative things going on right now, honestly, null is the biggest problem, not any of our omens. Let's see, you're a monster. One of you two is a monster, which means you can't be. Do we know anything else around here? Okay, well, we know that these 3, 2 of them must be monsters, which means this is telling us that all that stuff is free. Same deal here. 2 of these are omens, which means that is not an omen. We only have 1 omen left. Oh, actually, so it's really good for us to chord instead of opening cells individually because we want to open more than 1 box per turn to keep the poison from hitting us. So everything's going splendidly, is my point. This is going really well. One of these 2 is a monster, so the 2 tells us that that cannot be a monster. We're seeing a lot of areas here where I don't feel confident. A lot of areas where I don't feel immediately confident. We're going to have to actually do a little bit of math. Okay. What do the gleans tell us? How about that? Do we have any interesting gleans? Not really. Okay, I guess we know this. All 3 of those are monsters. Okay, 3 of these 5 are monsters, but only 1 of these 2 can be. So 2 of these 3 are monsters, but only 1 of these 2 can be. So we know that's a monster. That's not useful information, but it's true information. It's got to count for something. Okay. 1 of these 2 definitely is, so this 1 makes those safe, which means this one is now giving us real information. That's helpful. All 3 of those are monsters. That is also a monster. 1 of these 2 is, but I guess that doesn't really tell me anything interesting. So 1 of these 2 is a monster, and exactly 1 of these 2 is a monster. So that means this must be a monster to satisfy that 2. It also means this 2 is satisfied with none of those being monsters. Got ourselves an artifact. Oh yeah, I was going to go figure out crafting before starting to record the... Well, whatever, we'll get there. We'll go have a look for it after we die horribly, which is a thing that I'm sure will happen. Okay, so we've managed to clear all of our omens. We are still not out of the woods exactly. It is still very important that we get out of here without taking a hit. But we're making steps in the right direction, you know? Progress is occurring. Let's see. This 2 is solved already. This must be a monster, and that must be a monster. There's only 24 monsters left to reveal. Okay, we know this is solved. These must both be monsters to satisfy this 2, which means these are all easy. Now we're in a little bit of a situation there. This 3 is telling us only 1 of those can be monsters, so this must be to satisfy the 4. That doesn't necessarily give us anything new to work with, though. We may... when it comes... Before we will guess, before we are willing to guess, we will absolutely use our compass. If we were to hit the bomb right now... Highest visible cell... Is there a 5 anywhere? No, so it would be this. The 4 would explode. That's not useless. I wonder how it determines... It says the visible cell with the highest value. I wonder if you have multiple cells that share the highest value. I wonder how that works. If it blows up all of them or if it like chooses one at random. That might be a thing that's worth doing here. Obviously, I would like to save the bomb. Let's see if we can figure anything else out. Okay, so hold on. We know that one of these must be a monster to satisfy that, so this cell is actually safe. Okay, that's great. That's real information right there. For the 3, for the 2, that must be a monster. For the 3, that must be a monster. And thankfully, courting a 4 gives us some more spying information. You must be... the 4 tells us that this must be a monster, and then this 4 is solved. I'm just double checking that I didn't make any errors there. One of these 2 is... That's not interesting. That's true, that's true. Okay, we managed to whittle that down quite a bit. We got half of the monsters out in that sequence there. And we may now find out what happens when you when you use the bomb when there's more than one cell sharing the highest value. Oh, actually, okay, so we know this tells us that, which gives us a couple more solves. Let's see, one of these 2 is a monster for the 4, so the 2 gives us this one. Those are both monsters. One of these is as well, which means this one must be. Satisfy that 4. And then I think we actually are stuck. So we have 2 options here. We could pop Spy 3, which will give us information about all of the cells adjacent to this 4 and the 2 cells adjacent to that 3, which might be useful. Or we could just try to blow the problem up. What if we just exploded all of our problems? I'm going to use the Spy, because the Spy is going to give us a larger amount of information, so we'll probably be able to make multiple solves off of it. At least that was my hope. Okay, no, that is useful. This being a 3 means that must be a monster which solves this 4, and this 3, and this 1, and this 1. And that gets me that. These two are monsters. Yeah, there we go. That broke things very wide open. You must be a monster. So there's only one monster left. This 5. So remember, the number on a cell tells you how many monsters are in the 8 surrounding cells. This 5 is not yet solved because the monster that is in this cell doesn't contribute to the 5. So there's one monster in one of these 2 cells, and this 5 also needs there to be one more monster. So that's the guy. There we go. Easy. We made it through a kind of harrowing situation there. I will say that I wish we'd made more money, because I really do think we want to go to the shop now. We could really just use items, but I wish we had more money to buy items with. Okay, some very basic leg armor. I mean, 4 points of armor is not inconsiderable. So I don't remember if we got armor in the last episode. Armor just absorbs damage. These boots, when we put them on, they will absorb the next 4 damage we take. And if you end a level with your armor not completely broken, it restores back to its full value. So if we got hit for 3, we'd have 1 point of armor remaining, and then if we completed the level, the boots would go back to 4 armor. So they'll tank a little bit of damage for you each level, ideally. The golden chalice is just going to feed us money constantly. I think we should take the golden chalice. We already have another shop open, so if we just really hammer on this next level, we can maybe get ourselves into a position. I mean, we're going into a level again with no defense and 3 life, so we'd have to be very careful, but this is a better long-term play. We just have to not make any mistakes. You know, no mistakes. Monsters deal extra damage equal to the number of other visible monsters. It's also the case that the base monster damage is almost enough to kill us here. There's a really good chance that if we make a single mistake, we will immediately die. Let's use the golden chalice, get ourselves some money, and then get rolling here. We're going to click inside. Okay, that's a pretty good one. Golden chalice is fully charged, so let's just use it again. So far clicking inside the puzzle has been very good to us. But man, I don't know if there's any feeling in this game that I like less than doing an inside initial click and just getting a 3x3. Alright, 2 coins. So that's pretty easy. This glean has been very helpful. So we're going to be able to make a lot of use of the chalice here. But making constant use of the chalice does mean we have to be a little bit careful about our compass usage. Anytime you have more than one magic item, you find yourself in this this position where they're competing for the mana. Also, man, we are finding a lot of just loose cash as well, which is going to be very helpful. Consume an uncharged magic item to gain mana equal to the mana it was missing. Well, that's an interesting solution to the problem of having too many magic items. Yeah, those are all legit. Got 5 coins that time. We are going to come out of this level with a considerable amount of money. Again, provided we don't die. Which is not a thing we should necessarily take off the table. It could happen. I don't want to blow anybody's mind here. Sometimes I make errors in video games. So one of those is, which means this can't be. One of these is, which means this can't be, and that's a great solve. Always make sure to drink from your chalice. Yeah, like 40 mana is nothing. You get 40 mana very, very frequently. Okay, over here we should knock this out before I forget about it. So those are both monsters. This is a monster. Okay, yeah, we've worked through this very quickly. So one of these two is, so that one isn't. Exactly one of these two is a monster, which sadly does not tell me anything useful. And it's looking like we are running out of certainty. One of these two is a monster, so this one must also be a monster to satisfy the middle 3. One of these two is a monster, so this can't be. The 4 tells us that one of these two is, but that's not really usable information. It doesn't tell us anything just yet. The highest revealed square is here, so our bomb would be pretty bad in this situation. I think we might have to compass here. Let's try to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Because this is a pretty weak compass. It's entirely possible that we use the compass here and it like marks a cell over there and it gives us nothing to work with. There are only 14 monsters left. So there's a lot of these cells are safe. Like a huge number of these cells are safe. But yeah, it doesn't... I might be missing it, but it doesn't look like we have any new information available, so... Okay, that's actually useful. That gives us a couple of solves right away. We got pretty lucky on that one. There's pretty good odds, given the number of cells that are left, that that was not going to be good info. Let's see, both of those are monsters, which means that is also a monster for that 3. That's a monster, and okay. Corner's clear, and we have a nice break into this other shape over here. Alright, yeah, not too bad. I'd like to look over the level one more time to make sure I'm not leaving any useful items behind. So we didn't get quite as much money there as I would have liked. The Chaos Font. Well, alright, let's go embrace destiny, shall we? Alright, so we can pay 4 coins here, and it will give us one of these options. Of note, one of them is that the Chaos Font immediately disappears and takes your 4 coins with it. There's also an Omen here. Honestly, this is kind of whatever. We're at the point now where if we get hit by a monster, we immediately die, so it just sort of doesn't matter if they do extra damage. The Lance will kill people. I mean, this seems pretty good. We should definitely throw some gold in here. Alright, we got a spear. I'll keep buying. We got... Whenever you gain a diamond, get a nomad. That's kind of whatever. The dice let you re-roll the mods on a selected stage. You can't... It doesn't change the number, but... So now, do we go in again? The watering can's a great item, but I think the answer is no. We did really well there, and we just leave, and now we don't have enough money to go to the shop, but we do have a lot of useful items now. I love this stage's music. Okay. Destroy all the monsters in the target column. You know what I'm realizing? I don't actually know whether this kills all the monsters in the squares, or whether this reveals the squares that had monsters in them and kills the monsters in the squares, or... I guess this would be a good time to test, right? So we'll just go... Where do I think there's... Here, we'll do it here. Okay, it opens up the square. It opens up the cell and kills the monsters. That's really great. That's an incredible item. I also got a slingshot. Reveal a random cell each turn. If the cell contains a monster, kill it. That's a super powerful one-time effect. Let's open up the easy gleans here. Did we glean zeros anywhere else? No. It looks like actually a lot of the gleans that we got were in this area because there's not too many of them left. So I don't... looking at this, it looks like we have a lot to work with. There's a lot of ones around. So I'm not going to use our slingshot. I think we're okay. Do I want to employ the chalice? Probably not. I probably want to let the lance charge back up. Let's not do anything that could draw mana out of the lance for right now. Let's see. Okay, here we have the classic 1-2-1. So we know what that means. I really would feel more comfortable, though, if we had a little bit more max HP. I'm, like, very, very nervous about the fact that it's very likely that if we see a monster, it will kill us. I made an error. See, what I was thinking is this 2 was solved already, but this cell that I marked was bad. Why did I mark this? Yo, why did I mark this? Did I mark this because I saw the 2 there? And then I went, oh, and that means the 2 is solved, so we can remove this other... Because those two things are mutually exclusive. It can't both be the case that this is a monster, and that this being a monster means we can click on this. I'm unhappy with that. Chubby boss check, you've done it again. That's why they call him the Typhoon of Greatness. The disfigured thing comes from something else. Well, you know what? That was only 35 minutes. We're just going to go again. We're just going to go back in there. Are we still a spy? We are still a spy. Okay. I'm embarrassed about that. That's a dumb way to die. If we take damage from Null on the first map, I will absolutely reset the run. what a terrible thing that would be. So he would sell me mana. I don't want to buy mana. I don't have any items yet, man. What are you thinking? Know your market. Oh, interesting. No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. So gain a random item from each category, and your prize box will contain one extra item. I don't know what a prize box is. It feels like we should click on this. Okay, gain a random item from each category will include an omen. So I guess that's a thing worth worrying about. But okay, I click. Oh, do I have to... Oh, you know what? That's the thing that you use at the beginning of a run, maybe? Oh, whatever it is. We collected it. There's too many things in the game. I can't keep straight what they all are. Okay, let's see. Solve this. So, it is kind of a weird situation. Where, like, I want to go fast because I'm afraid of the thing not being exciting. If I don't go fast, that's too strong. Exciting is probably not a thing that a Minesweeper video can ever be, but you know what I mean. It'll be more entertaining if I'm not hemming and hawing all over the place, making the same counts over and over again. But also, the faster I play, the worse I do. I'm trying to find a healthy balance here. We should be able to get through these first levels very quickly. So we're already doing a lot better on money early on than we were in that last run. I did not take note of whether there's a shop available after this first level, but honestly, I would go to it if there was one. Okay, so there's 5. 2 of these have to be monsters, right? But only one of these 2 can be. So first of all, we know all the other cells around that one are safe. Secondly, we know that is definitely a monster. Alright, that was a very productive level. 28 gold on the first level is really, really nice. The Meadow of Departed Souls. Whenever you take damage, lose defense equal to the stage's minimum power. Okay, so that doesn't do anything at all to us. You cannot have negative defense. I did the thing again. I was supposed to be clicking in the middle. So, monster power is 1 to 2. We are not necessarily dead if we get hit. If you spend at least 30 coins in an item shop, it remains open. Oh, interesting. Well, it's very likely that we will be able to spend 30 coins in the next item shop. I suppose it's possible that we'll meet a nomad here on this level that we want to give some of our money to. But that aside, I think we're doing really well cash-wise. Unfortunately, we have now run out of certainty. Yeah, I think so. So we have an interesting situation over here. One of these 3 cells we know to be a monster. It could be this one to satisfy the 2, but it also could be the 2, and then have one of these 2 be the monster that satisfies the 2. And unfortunately, there's no way to even make an educated guess on that. We do know that that cell is empty. And then, for this 2, we know one of these 2 is a monster. So we could guess around this and have a 1 in 5 chance of accidentally hitting the bad tile. But the downside of that is that reveals up here don't necessarily give us a lot of information. Like if we click on this cell and it's a 1, we haven't actually learned all that much. Well, I guess we've learned that these cells are safe to open. This might be where we're doing our guess. Yeah, I think it is. That's a 3. Okay. That's really interesting. I believe that tells us that this is a monster, right? Because we know there's 1 monster in here. And then there's 2 monsters within these 3 cells, but there can only be 1 adjacent to that 2. Which means that we also know that neither of those are monsters. That, unfortunately, those 3 together, I don't think are telling us anything. We don't get any value from that at all. Into all the trouble of guessing, and it didn't even solve the whole puzzle for me. Can you believe it? Well, guessing around this 2 is relatively safe. Especially these ones out at the side, because a pretty significant number of the remaining cells around this 3, half of the remaining cells around this 3 are monsters. So let's just start clicking around the outside of this 2. Is that better odds than we're getting elsewhere? Clicking around here would probably give us the ability to build out a little bit more. Let's try that. So, one of these 2 is a monster. One of these 3 is a monster. That does tell me... it doesn't tell me that much. It would have been really nice to know that that was a monster. It not being a monster is actually not a huge amount of information. Alright, we're just gonna... Okay, that's really useful, because we know that there's a monster in here. Those 2 are... One of these 3 is, which means that 2 of these 3 must be for the 4. It doesn't necessarily actually give us that much information, though. So 2 of these 5 must be, but no more than 1 of these 4 can be. Which means that 1 of these 2 is definitely a monster. Which gives us some information on this 3, but not enough to make any actual determinations. That's real crummy, man. Yeah, we're already back to a place where I think I need to guess. If I'm not mistaken. This stage has gone terribly for us so far. I mean, we've gotten lucky. I guess I can't complain too much. But aside from that, this stage has gone terribly for us so far. Alright, one of these 2 is definitely a monster. It makes me reluctant to guess over here. Looking in the corner is not going to give us any information at all. One of these 4 cells is a monster. One of these 3 cells is a monster. One of these 2. The odds of this cell being a monster are, I think, pretty low, and if it is or isn't a monster, it solves this 3, which maybe will give us more information. Yeah, okay, I think that was a pretty reasonable place to put down a guess. So then that solves this, and then we break inward. Doing very well on money, which is extremely heartening. That has solved... it hasn't solved anything over there just yet, hold on. Or anything up there just yet. That, however, has, because now we know that this is a 3... Or sorry, now we know what 3 monsters this is directing us toward. And then, you're solved, you're solved. There we go. We had to get a little bit lucky there, but fortunately we did. And then all the cells are empty from there. You don't like to have to guess that many times on a stage, especially not that early in the game. So if we spend 30 or more gold here, it will remain open. Okay. When you complete a stage, gain a soul if you took no damage. It's hard not to take the Ponderer's Pipe, right? Sundrop is mostly pretty bad, in my opinion. It very often, especially if you're trying to use it late in the level, it very often will just reveal monsters that you've already flagged. And the Cattle Prod is almost always useless. We're just going to buy this. The item shop is not going to remain open. That's fine. We don't even want the other things in there. Stage power is greater than usual. Okay, it's a 1 to 3, so dangerous-ish, but if we can do this without taking damage, we can get ourselves off of 3 health, which I think is a priority. Okay, that was the only glean. And yes, I know, once again I clicked at the edge instead of in the middle. So let's see, you are a monster. Okay, this is going pretty well. We're opening up a lot of space really quickly. Okay, so the gleaned cell gives us information there. One of these two is, so this one can't be. So I will say, one of the big advantages of the Night Mastery is that you start to feel comfortable a lot earlier. You start a stage, you're guaranteed objects spawn inside bubbles. I believe that you are only guaranteed a single treasure chest each level at the beginning of a campaign, but you can find items that will increase that will guarantee additional stuff. But even without any additional stuff guaranteed to you, that Dreamcatcher means that you will have access to the chest you are guaranteed right away at the beginning of the stage, which can be useful. You know, sometimes there's a powerful item in it, and it really benefits you to have it earlier rather than later. Okay, so all of those are monsters. Yeah, this is easy-ish. This is going okay. That 5 is going to give us a little bit of information off the cord. Although not a lot of helpful information. Those two being 3s doesn't really help me that much. I guess it does tell me that this is a monster, which does give us a little solve. So you're good. This 3 needs one more monster nearby. This 4 needs one more monster nearby. Solves this. Okay. Yeah, we're doing a fine job of actually solving the levels, and that's important. And I may overvalue it a little bit, because that's the part of the Minesweeper that is fun, is that like actually figuring out the answer. Our pipe goes off, which is great. But it probably, in the long term, I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out that in the long term it's better to like develop your defense and life. Maybe night is actually better. So at the beginning of the stage we'll gain a revive, and then at the end of the stage we will lose lives equal to the max power, and all normal heart drops on the level are souls instead. So we'll take 3 damage when we finish the level no matter what. But we get a revive at the beginning. So there's a pretty good chance that the way this is going to work out, we're going to get hit like one time, and then the way this is going to work out is we just lose the revive that we came in with. But maximum upside on this level is very high, right? And I got to keep looking at the looking at our items and reminding myself that we don't have any of the stuff we started with, or any of the stuff we earned on the last run, which is very disappointing. Before entering a stage, remove a random stage mod. Yo, that item is awesome! What an extremely good item. There are so many stages that we're going to run into that just have one stage mod that totally sucks. It will be great to see all of that stuff disappear. Alright, we got fairly lucky with the gleans here. Saw a fair number of zeros. Let's see, this makes... so with the 4... I guess we don't actually... Hold on, we don't know anything with that. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go other places. Where else do we have guaranteed information? Well, we have that 1-2-1 formation here, so we know how that works. You do have to be a little bit careful with it. It only is guaranteed to work that way if it's a 1-2-1 against a flat wall with empty space behind it. You can very easily convince yourself that you found a 1-2-1 that is a little bit different because it's too close to other formations or something. So when we click on the wish pool, we will gain a minion. But if we don't click it right away and we open 20 cells without making a mistake, the wish pool value will increase by 1. Basically, we don't want to touch this until after we finish the level. We're going to increase that value by as much as possible and then get a whole bunch of minions. And minions are not the same as health and defense, but a one-time damage block is still significant. God, I hope we find a bunch more hearts. Please let this be a stage where a whole lot of random hearts spawn. I mean, even just finding one is awfully nice. And remember, if we can get through this without taking any damage, we will get another soul off of that, which would be just fantastic. Really worried about this. We don't really have a way of resolving it either. Right, none of our items do anything. in this this particular situation. So let's just hope that that doesn't... Wait, does it... Gain 1 soul if you took no damage, not if you made no mistakes. So we could potentially use the minions from the wish pool to block the damage we would take from having guessed, and still get our pipe bonus. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see if it comes to that. The 4 tells us that this must be a monster because only one of these can be. Up here we have some stuff we can still dig out. Yeah, that 3 is already solved, so that gives us this 2. Just have to be careful here. Don't go too fast. Don't screw up in embarrassing ways. Alright. What about up here? We have a 1-2-1. And then we have a 50-50. Getting to a point here where it looks like we're going to have to make a whole bunch of half and half guesses, which I'm not happy about. That's really bad for us. Really bad for our chances of bringing home another point of health. Okay, well, hold on. We do know a thing over here, right? That must be a monster. We could use our spy power and at least glean some stuff in this corner, but it's not going to help us with this guess or with these corner guesses. There's just not anything we can do about that, sadly. Well, I think we have to use it. I think we have to try to get out of this without getting hit. So that 2 is already solved. Do we get anything else of value here, actually? Well, I guess this is solved, so that digs us in there. That 6 requires that to be true, which means that this 2 tells us that this is empty. The 5 here requires that. Okay, we're getting some more information. So at this point, there are 4 minions in the wish pool. We are not going to open another 20 cells without making a mistake, because there's not another 20 cells to open. So we may as well just go ahead and click that. Pull the 4 minions into our inventory. And they could tank 1 or maybe even 2 hits for us, depending on what is rolled. So that may help out. Let's see. One of these 2 is a monster, which solves that 2, so we can get some information off of that. We know this is not a monster because of the 1s. So that actually... Okay, that actually took care of that corner. So now we have to make a couple of guesses yet. Let's see. We know there are 3 monsters remaining. One of them is right here. There's also 1 monster in these 2 and 1 monster in those 2. But it could just be a the 2 of those together could just be a single monster here, so there might be 1 more monster in the corner. So we cannot safely click into the corner. And there's just no... Yeah, there's no deduction possible here. We're just gonna have to make a guess. Ow. Okay, how many minions died there? So we got hit for 3. The minions took all the damage. So we're going to mark that, because now we know that's true. Alright, and now, rather than risking the 50-50, solve a random cell. There are only 2 cells unsolved, so he will solve that. And that means we get our pipe bonus again. And we also take 3 damage. That means we maintain our revive. That went super well. 6 max HP with a revive. We are in so much better shape. And we're going to have enough money to go shopping. This run's going splendidly. I'm very, very happy. Okay, 2 to 4 damage on a hit from a monster. So let's try not to get hit, shall we? Here's my guaranteed chest. And hey, look at that. Aren't we lucky? We got another chest too. Flag 3 monsters whenever you spend coins. Okay, that'll be useful. You know, those NPCs that want you to give them coins for stuff and levels. And also the adrenaline. So when we have to make a guess, we can give ourselves a ton of defense temporarily. Of course, that's a dangerous thing, that adrenaline, if you already have defense, because it will strip your natural defense off over time as well. But there are also some ways of removing timed status effects from yourself. So we could, potentially with the right item, take the adrenaline, gain 5 defense, and then purge ourselves of the status effect, the every 30 turns thing, and have this item just give us 5 points of defense. So we need to be on the lookout for things that might enable that interaction. Okay. A pyro. So you can see the pyro has a little arrow on him. Every turn, which again is every time we click to open up any number of cells, the pyro will shoot a fireball. Remember what we saw from the bubble boy in the last video. Stuff that goes off the edge of the puzzle will wrap around. If a flare connects with a cell, it will destroy the cell, leave a burning square behind, and if there was a monster in the cell, the monster will be killed. Pyros are super good. If we give him 7 coins, he'll turn and start firing in a different direction, but honestly, it couldn't be any better than this. This is exactly where we want him to be shooting. And if we were to give him... we could give him coins as a way of flagging 3 monsters. I think that's unlikely to happen. He'll be dead by the time we would want to do that. And you'll see why in a second here. So he created a burning cell. If we touch the burning cell, we take 1 damage. Obviously, we don't want to do that. But he'll just burn out this whole column and give us a ton of information for free. So we're just gonna keep playing our puzzle. He blew up a monster, it sounds like. And we're just gonna keep playing our puzzle, and he'll do that good work for us. We know this is a monster. We know this is a monster. One of these 2 is, so this one can't be, which means both of these are to satisfy that 3. Gives us a bunch more information. Now, I said he's going to be dead before we could possibly use him in that other way. At some point, he's going to wrap a fireball around through his own back. There's nothing we can do to prevent that in this situation, and I wouldn't if I could. This is a place where like a pitchfork might be useful to just move him to another row or column to have him start burning something else instead of dying. But, you know. He's giving his life nobly for the cause. Ooh, he left behind a ruby of flame. Oh, that's interesting. So if we touch that, we'll lose a... oh, right, I should be picking up hearts. If we touch that, we'll lose a health. We'll probably still pick that up before the end of the level. I don't know. For the moment, let's just continue on. I think it's unlikely that we would want to use it during the level. So, yeah, we won't worry about it for the moment. Alright, these are monsters. That's a monster. One of these 2 is, so that can't be. We have a lot of information to work with here. We know that's not a monster. One of these 2 is. That doesn't really tell me a whole lot. Okay, one of these 3 cells is a monster, says this guy. So then we know this guy is telling us those are not monsters. And that 2 solves us a lot of information. Let's see, one of you 2 is, so you must be... we might be in a situation here where it starts to make sense to work this side of the puzzle. As we break down this wall, these cells will start to tell us more and more about what's on the left. We'll just veer off here. Did I? Oh, I did screw that up. This one was already solved. Oops. Well, there goes our revive. That sucks, but at least, you know, at least we still have 6 max HP. I am really bummed out about that, though. That's a big loss. Okay. Trying to focus, not get all up in my head over the bad I just did. I definitely have a tendency to fixate on failure. I had to develop the idea that failure is actually a fine, good thing, that it's instructive, that you gain a lot by failing, because otherwise it makes me real sad in a way that's very unproductive. Okay, so what else do we know? What else do we know? At most, one of these is a monster, so that one must be to satisfy the 3, which actually gives us a huge amount of information. We don't know whether that's a monster or not, but we will by the end of the level. So that's not a big deal. Unfortunately, having taken damage there also means we're not going to get an extra soul off of our pipe. This is a pretty big loss. There's a big screw-up. It's adrenalines and... oh, you know what? I should have used our bones, probably. Because we could have had full health. Yeah. Boo. Alright, one of these two is a monster. That can't be a monster. We're just going to try to focus here. One of these two is. That doesn't tell me anything. Oh, this is starting to look a little grim in terms of guessing. Okay, one of these two is a monster, which means this 3 is satisfied. There we go. That's how you break that. That's actually a pretty big deal. That's going to open up a huge amount of this puzzle. So that 3 is solved. We know this is not a monster, which means this must be a monster, which means this is solved. So one of these 3 is a monster, 2 of these 3 means that is a monster. Okay. That one must be... And the 2 is telling us that this is also a monster, and that's not correct. Hold on, I screwed up somewhere. Well, this is definitely a monster. Alright, so one of the cells that we flagged is not actually a monster. I screwed up somewhere in a way that didn't cause us to take additional damage. A benign screw-up, if you will. Well, that's a little bit of a problem, because the ones that cause you to take damage are pretty easy to immediately notice and fix. Oh, this is also... Well, this is probably not a monster, given that we are already overflagged, but let's worry about that in a second here. Looking for the number that is adjacent to too many flagged cells. It looks to me like all this stuff is right. There's a 3... There's a 4, there's a 3, there's a 2. This can sometimes be a bit of a tedious process. I apologize, everybody. Yeah, I don't immediately see it. That 4, it usually when this happens, it's because there was a large number where I flagged one too many cells nearby, but it looks like that's not the case here. All of our largest numbers are correct. Oh, here it is. This 3 has 4 cells marked adjacent to it. So this one is definitely marked. This one is the wrong one. Okay, and then that makes it pretty obvious that that is also wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the flame gem. We'll take 1 damage here. Since we already took damage, and taking that damage doesn't disable our pipe, we may as well grab it. It's pretty likely we'll find a heart early on in a future level. You've seen that happens quite frequently. Chests are half as likely to contain omens. Convert all visible monsters to familiars is... on a lot of levels, you're not going to have any visible monsters if things are going well, right? So a lot of the time, the brainwash doesn't do anything at all. On levels where it does convert some stuff, it'll usually lead to some cells getting uncovered, but it's hard to count on it for a number of reasons. The Godly Goblet lets us consume a legendary item to go from 0 revives to 1 revive. We have no legendary items, so that feels kind of bad. I think we're going to take the brainwash, just because I don't want to leave the shop without buying anything. And then we're going to move on. 2 to 6 damage now the monsters deal, so we need to not take any damage for a minute here. We'll probably use the bones fairly early on. Let's click like here. Alright, give me my guaranteed. Gain souls equal to your defense, and gain defense equal to your lives. Up to a maximum of 5 each. So wait, when I eat that, I'm going to gain 5 defense? Is that right? That seems like an incredibly powerful item. Apparently I've seen it before. We didn't get the item added to your codex notification. But that's bananas. So now all of the monsters in this stage will only hit us for 1? It's like pretty good. Do we want to spend the bones then? Probably not, right? We want to hold off on this until we're a little bit lower. So what did we learn from this? Well, we know that's a monster. We know one of these two is also a monster, so that 1 reveals a couple of spaces. Oh, hey! Every 20 cells you open without making a mistake, spawn a familiar, then reduce the maximum stage power. Okay. That seems very good. That seems like a very good item. I'm not wild about familiars in general, but free familiars is just like extra chances to get tiles revealed, so it's hard to be upset about that. Although, the familiar spawning in the middle of nowhere where it's unlikely to actually reveal any new cells is, not ideal. Yeah, he's just gonna wander around in that corner for a really long time. Ah well, I'm not looking to gift horse in the mouth over here. That is a much better spawn. So these familiars are weak. If they run into a monster, they die immediately. But if we're going to be spawning monsters constantly, and they're revealing, or if we're spawning familiars constantly and they're revealing monsters, that does make Brainwash a little better. We also have the ability, I think we should probably mention, of burning the cell. If I do this, it'll just kill him straight up, right? Which might reveal, might cause him to drop items. Monsters can drop items when they're killed. And I believe they always have a chance of dropping bones. And then each type of monster has a special, unique drop that can only be gotten by killing it. So maybe we'll see something a little bit cooler, occasionally. Let's see, that 2 is solved. I will say, like, we're super tough now. The combination of constantly dragging down the max stage power and having 5 points of defense means that there's a pretty good chance that we will never, at any point after this in this run, get hit for more than a single point of damage. With 6 HP, 6 max HP, that matters, right? That's a lot of protection. Alright, one of these 2 is a monster, so that one must be a monster. Do we have any gleaned zeros or anything that I can work with out here? No, we need to build out toward these before they'll be useful. Okay, what else do we have? We have this 3. One of these 4 cells is a monster. Exactly one of these 4 cells is a monster. Which means that this 5 is telling us that that's a monster. Again, remember that the 1 here is telling us there's 1 monster in one of these cells. This could or could not be a monster itself, which unfortunately stymies our chances of revealing stuff over there a little bit. I really, really, really don't want to have to guess, because we would love to have our pipe actually fire. So I might... I guess we don't really have a lot of options here. Yeah, if we don't have any items to help with this. If we get to a point where we have to guess, we just have to guess. That's crummy. Okay. Is there any place that I'm missing obvious information? One of these is a monster, which means exactly one of these is a monster. That doesn't really help us. One of these is a monster. 2 of these 3 are monsters in order to satisfy the 3, which means that none of this stuff can be. And the fact that 2 of these 3 are monsters doesn't necessarily tell us anything over here. Both of them could be monsters, or it could be just one of them, so it's hard to glean anything about these ones from that. Oh, except that the 4 tells us that the 4 plus this 1 tells us that none of this stuff could be monsters. That's useful. And now we know from the 2 that one of these 2 is monsters, so this cell's giving us information. Okay, that makes things way easier. Alright. Get some good minion swagger going on here, which is helpful. Let's see. You must be a monster. So we don't yet know what the deal is with that 5. Never mind. That totally tells us what the deal is with that 5. Alright, I'm starting to have hope here that we might be able to activate the pipe again. I guess maybe that's premature. There's still an awful lot of level. Yeah, we don't want to use any of our items. Still just an awful lot of level left. One of those is, this can't be... Okay, we revealed a monster again, which may or may not actually turn out to be helpful. I will say that I sometimes have trouble with revealed monsters, because I forget that they're monsters. You know, I'm tuning my brain into like, this is the graphic of a monster. So sometimes I don't correctly flag around revealed monsters. I mean, it's good that I know that, at least. That can understanding your weaknesses is sometimes enough to prevent you from effectively having those weaknesses. And prevent yourself from falling into a trap much more easily if you know the trap is there. If only that was all it took. Okay, so let's see. That is a monster. This is solved. This is solved. One of these two is a monster, which means that one can't be. And then, let's see, we can dig in this way. Starting to run a little bit low on... Okay, everything up in that corner is done. So we're getting close. We're getting close. Oh, this 3 is already solved. That's helpful. It's good to notice the thing that you already know. Did I screwed up somewhere there. Well, I guess we know this now. That's a real shame. I made a weird assumption... I made a weird assumption based off of, I think, like, only doing half of the logic. Okay, so this 4 is solved because that is a monster. No, wait. I just did the thing. That's a monster. So there's only one of these two is a monster. Well, I guess this is solved already. We can do that. And that's a shame. So we will not be benefiting from our pipe now. This is solved. That solves that. These must both be monsters for the 4. Since we know that one of these is a monster, that solves this too, meaning this can't be a monster. That doesn't actually give us any information, unfortunately. Yeah, like one of these, that's tough. Are we done with every other part of the puzzle? Okay. So we may have to make a guess or two over here. The pressure is not super high. Let's see, one of these two is a monster, which means this one must also be a monster, which solves this 3. I don't know, maybe we're not going to have to guess after all. I have to say, this scepter is giving me really high hopes. 2-2. That's a monster, and then we're good. I'm not leaving anything on the ground, am I? No. Our mastery is fully charged. That gives me a lot of hope for the future. And, you know... Oh, there's a chaos font. There's a shiny blight. Oh, currency. Currency everywhere. There's another shop coming up. There's kind of a lot of game left, and I think we're just going to stretch this one to 3 episodes, because I don't want to try to run this whole thing out. The puzzles are only going to get bigger and more complicated, and this is probably going to take another hour at least. We're not going to try to jam this all in here. So I'm going to say thank you all so much for watching. Come back next time for one more episode of Demon Crawl. I hope that this has exposed to some of you a game that you might never have found out about, especially like somebody said in the comments of the last episode, and I totally get where you're coming from on this. If somebody had just told me, hey, it's a game and it's kind of based on Minesweeper, you would have completely disregarded it. Because that, you know, Minesweeper's terrible. Everybody who has played it knows it's terrible. So I hope that this has demystified a thing and shown somebody a thing that they will really enjoy. Come back next time, one more, and we'll see you then.